If you have the courage to listen, stay until the very end. Because tonight, I promise you, you won't sleep. I had been looking for a quiet place to start over. A friend told me about a cheap rental on the edge of town, an old farmhouse on Black Hollow Road. The pictures looked fine, a bit old-fashioned but cozy. When I arrived, I realized why it was so cheap. The place was isolated, surrounded by dense forest. The nearest neighbor was nearly a mile away. The air felt heavier there, like the trees were watching me. The landlord, a thin old man with pale blue eyes, handed me the keys without making eye contact. Before he left, he said one strange thing. Don't go outside after midnight, and don't answer if someone knocks on your door after dark. I laughed it off, probably some weird country superstition. That night, I unpacked and tried to settle in. Around midnight, I heard something soft, rhythmic knocking, but it was coming from inside the house. I froze listening. 3 slow knocks, then silence. I checked every room. Nothing. I went to bed, telling myself it was just the old house settling. But at exactly 3:17 a.m., I woke up to find my bedroom door, locked before I went to sleep, standing wide open. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of knocking. Not on my door. Not even on the cabin walls. It was coming from underneath the floorboards. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. Pause. Then 3 more. At first, I told myself it was just the old house settling, but then I remembered this cabin didn't have a basement. It was built directly on the ground. When I crouched down and pressed my ear to the cold wood, I swear I heard breathing. Slow. Wet. Too close. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The following day, the air felt heavier, like the woods were holding their breath. Even the birds were silent. I tried to distract myself by walking to the end of the driveway, but something caught my eye in the ditch by the tree line. It was a Polaroid photo. In it, I was standing at the cabin window. My face was pale, my eyes wrong, like they were looking at something far beyond me. The worst part? It had been taken that morning. That night, I nailed the windows shut. I locked every door. But at 3:13 a.m., I woke to the sound of someone whispering my name. Not shouting, just right next to my ear. The smell hit me first. Rot. Damp earth. Then, in the darkness, a hand brushed across my hair. I turned on the flashlight, but no one was there. The next day, I decided I'd had enough. I was going to leave. But when I went to start my car, the battery was dead. On the windshield, written in something brown and sticky, were the words, "Don't leave. Not yet." I never told anyone what happened that week, because if I did, I'd have to explain the 3rd photograph I found tucked under my pillow the morning I finally escaped. In it, I wasn't alone in the bed. Something was lying next to me. I didn't go back to the cabin. I thought if I stayed with friends in the city, the fear would fade, that whatever followed me would stay in those woods. But fear doesn't fade when it follows you home. The first night in the city, I woke to the sound of scratching, soft, almost polite, coming from inside my closet. I told myself it was the building settling, rats maybe. But when I opened the door, the scratching didn't stop. Just moved from the closet walls to the ceiling and then directly above my bed. I didn't sleep. 2 nights later, my phone buzzed at 2:46 a.m. Unknown number. No message, just a photo. It was my apartment bedroom, taken from the corner, while I was sleeping. In the photo, something tall and bent at the wrong angles was standing in the shadows near my bed. Its face was blurred, like the camera didn't want to remember what it saw. By the 4th night, the smell was back. That same rotting, damp earth scent from the cabin. This time it came from under my bed. I froze listening. And then, slowly, something began to crawl out. I could hear each movement. The drag of skin against the floorboards. The pop of joints bending where they shouldn't. The sound of wet breathing getting closer. My hand shook as I reached for my phone, but before I could turn on the flashlight, a voice whispered from the darkness. "You shouldn't have left." I screamed and ran, not looking back. I didn't go home that night, or the nights after. I stayed at cheap motels, moving every day. But no matter where I went, it found me. The knocks came first, always at 3:13 a.m. 3 slow knocks, plus 3 more. Then the photographs under my pillow. In each one, I was a little closer to something in the background. A figure, tall, thin, and wrong, standing just far enough away that I couldn't see its face. I decided to burn the last photograph I found. But when I lit the match, the image didn't burn. Instead, the paper turned cold. Frost spread across it like ice on glass. And then I saw it. The figure in the photo moved. It turned its head toward me. The photo fell from my hands, and from the corner of the room, a shadow began to pull itself out of the darkness. The last thing I remember is the smell. That damp earth. That graveyard stench. When I woke up, it was morning. I was in my bed, and on the nightstand there was a brand new photograph. In it, I was sleeping. And this time, the figure wasn't in the shadows. It was in my bed, smiling. That night, after I blocked every number and email I knew belonged to them, I thought it was over. But the quiet didn't feel like peace. It felt like something was watching. The house seemed colder. The shadows in the hallway stretched longer than they should. I decided to dig deeper. If they weren't going to leave me alone, I needed to know why. I started with the local library's newspaper archives. Most of the old files were on microfilm, dusty, faded, and smelling of age. After hours of searching, I found something unsettling. Buried on page 7 of a 1989 issue was a tiny article. Local woman missing after visit to Church of Scientology Center. Family claims strange behavior before disappearance. Her name was Claire Donovan. The article said she had been a schoolteacher, well-liked, respected. Then, after attending sessions at the church, she quit her job without warning, sold her house, and disappeared. Police suspected she left voluntarily, but her sister claimed Claire wasn't the same person in the final days before she vanished. She spoke in a flat, almost rehearsed tone. She would stay up all night muttering phrases like she was reciting lines to someone or something. I kept digging. 2 months later, another article. Different name, Evan Myers. Same story. Normal life, sudden contact with the church. Then gone. By the time I left the library, I had a stack of 15 similar cases. Different towns, different decades. But the pattern was identical. That night, I spread the printouts across my kitchen table. The faces stared up at me, smiling in old photographs, unaware they'd be gone in weeks. And then, my stomach dropped. In the corner of one photo, blurry, almost like a shadow, was a man I recognized. Not clearly, but enough to make my skin crawl. It was Alan. He looked exactly the same as he does now. No aging. No difference. The photo was dated 1993. I couldn't sleep. I kept checking my phone, my email, the front door. Around 3:14 a.m., my phone buzzed with a new email. No sender name. No subject. Just a single line of text. Stop looking. The moment I read it, every light in my apartment went out. I froze in the dark. The hum of the refrigerator had stopped. The street outside was silent, too silent. My phone screen was the only light, and even that started flickering. Then came the sound. Not from the hallway. Not from the windows. From inside the apartment. A slow, deliberate creak, like weight shifting on my bedroom floorboards. I hadn't been in there for hours. My breath caught in my throat as I strained to listen. Another step, and another. The sound was coming closer. I opened the phone's camera, hoping to use it as a flashlight, but before the screen could fully light up, the camera froze. Not the phone, just the camera. The image was stuck on some kind of distortion, like black static mixed with faint shapes moving behind it. Then a whisper, right next to my ear. We told you to stop looking. I spun around. No one there. The kitchen window, locked earlier, was now wide open. Cold air poured in, carrying the faintest smell of damp concrete and metal, like a basement that hadn't been opened in years. I grabbed the nearest thing I could use as a weapon, a kitchen knife, and crept toward the bedroom. The door was slightly ajar. From the crack, I could see my computer screen was on, even though I'd shut it down before bed. Lines of binary code were scrolling faster than I could read. My name appeared in between the numbers over and over again. I stepped inside. The binary stopped. A single sentence filled the screen. You belong to US now. Every door in the apartment slammed shut at the exact same second. The lights came back on, but it wasn't my apartment anymore. The wallpaper was peeling. The air was thick and heavy, and the floorboards creaked under my feet even when I didn't move. Outside the window, the street was gone, replaced by an endless black void. And then I saw them. 15 figures standing perfectly still in the darkness beyond the glass. I recognized their faces immediately. Claire Donovan, Evan Myers, all the missing people from the articles. They were smiling, and they all spoke in the same voice. Join us. I don't remember passing out. 1 second, those smiling faces were staring through the glass. The next, I was lying on the floor, my knife gone, my computer screen black. It was silent again. Too silent. Then my phone vibrated. A new notification. One new video, unknown sender. My hands were shaking as I pressed play. The footage was from inside my apartment. The angle was from the corner of my bedroom, high up like a security camera. I don't own a security camera. The timestamp read 2:43 a.m. last night. In the video, I was sleeping peacefully in my bed. Then slowly the closet door opened. Something stepped out. At first it looked human. A tall, thin man in a black suit. But his face, it was blurred, shifting, like static in human form. He stood at my bedside for what felt like hours, just watching me. Then, without warning, he bent down and whispered something in my ear. The audio was faint, but I could hear it. We're almost ready. Then, the version of me in the video sat up, eyes wide open, no blinking. And I got out of bed, not like I was walking, but like something was pulling me forward. The camera followed as I went to my computer, turned it on, and began typing at incredible speed. Binary code, my name, over and over. Then the me in the footage turned to the camera, looked directly into the lens, and smiled. I couldn't breathe. That smile wasn't mine. Suddenly, the video skipped ahead. The man in the suit was gone. But I was still at the desk, still typing. Behind me, my window was wide open, and those 15 figures were inside the room. The last frame froze on my face, my smiling, unblinking face, before the screen went black. I dropped the phone. My hands were ice cold. I didn't want to look behind me, but I had to, because now I could hear breathing right next to my ear. I froze. My entire body refused to move. The breathing was so close. I could feel the warmth of it brushing the tiny hairs on my neck. I forced myself to turn, slowly. No one was there. But the smell, oh God, the smell. It was like damp soil mixed with something metallic, blood, maybe. I backed toward the door, my eyes darting around the room. Everything looked normal, except the closet. It was open again. I know I closed it earlier. I know. I took one step closer, and that's when my phone lit up again. Another video. Same unknown sender. This one was live. The feed showed my own hallway right outside my apartment. The camera angle was low, almost like it was on the floor. Something was crawling toward my door. Its limbs were too long. Its fingers scraped against the wood, making a sound like nails on a chalkboard. And as it reached my door, it stopped and tilted its head toward the camera. No eyes, just smooth, pale skin where they should have been. Then, slowly, it reached up and started turning my doorknob. I panicked. I grabbed a chair and wedged it under the handle. The knob kept turning. Left, right, left, faster, louder. Then silence. I checked the feed again. Empty hallway. I started breathing again, thinking maybe it was over. But then the camera shifted. Not the hallway anymore. It was showing inside my living room. I looked up from my phone, and there they were. 3 figures, standing perfectly still in the middle of my apartment. Faces covered in burlap sacks, stitched into grotesque smiles. Their heads twitched every few seconds like broken animatronics. One of them slowly raised a finger to where its lips should be. I couldn't move. The three figures didn't blink, didn't breathe, didn't do anything except watch me. My phone buzzed again. Another message. This time no video, just a single line of text. We've been watching you since you were a child. My hands started to shake. Before I could even react, another message came through, this time a voice recording. I pressed play. It was my mother's voice, but she was whispering, and what she said froze my blood. Don't look behind you, sweetie. If you don't move, they might think you're already dead. Every muscle in my body tensed. I didn't dare turn around, but then I felt it. The air shifted. Something was right behind me. I could hear the faint creak of the floorboards under its weight. It leaned in close to my ear, so close I could feel the scratchy fabric of the burlap against my skin. And it spoke, in a low, guttural voice that was almost human. We know your name, we know where you sleep, and tonight we're taking you home. My apartment lights began flickering wildly. The figures in front of me tilted their heads in perfect unison, like they were responding to some silent command. Then all at once they moved, not walking, jerking forward in sudden, unnatural bursts, covering several feet in an instant. I stumbled back, tripping over the chair I had wedged under the door. The front door swung open on its own. Behind it was not my hallway, but a pitch-black corridor stretching far beyond what should have been possible. From the darkness came hundreds, no thousands, of faint, whispering voices, all saying my name, over and over. The three figures stepped aside, gesturing toward the black void. They wanted me to go in. And then, my phone lit up one last time. A new message. Step inside, or we'll bring it all to you instead. I stood frozen at the threshold. That black corridor shouldn't have existed. My apartment was barely 700 square feet. But here it was, swallowing the light around it, breathing out a cold that seeped deep into my bones. The whispers inside grew louder. They weren't random anymore. They were memories. My memories. I heard my own voice as a child, crying. I heard my father yelling my name from somewhere far away. I even heard the sound of my first pet dog barking, a sound I hadn't heard in over 15 years. Somehow, this corridor knew me. The three burlap-headed figures waited patiently, their heads twitching at odd angles. One of them slowly raised its hand and pointed into the darkness. And then, in a voice like wind rustling through dead leaves, it spoke a single word. Home. I didn't want to step forward, but my body started moving on its own. The moment my foot crossed the threshold, the floor beneath me changed. It wasn't hardwood anymore. It felt damp, spongy, like walking on something alive. The whispers became screams. I tried to turn back, but behind me, the doorway was gone. Only endless darkness in both directions. I walked deeper, each step echoing far louder than it should. The walls seemed to move, breathing in and out, pulsing like veins. At one point, I thought I saw fingers pressing out from inside the walls, dragging along as I passed. Then, I saw her. A woman standing in the distance. Her hair was matted, her head tilted, and she wore the same dress my mother used to wear when I was a child. She didn't move, didn't blink, just stood there waiting. I called out, my voice trembling. Mom? Her head jerked violently to one side. Not like a person, like something had snapped her neck halfway. Then, in a voice that was exactly my mother's, she whispered, "You were never supposed to leave us." She started walking toward me. At first slow, then faster, then impossibly fast. The walls began closing in, the floor shaking under my feet. I turned and ran, but no matter how fast I moved, her footsteps stayed right behind me. Every time I glanced over my shoulder, she was closer, her face twisted into something inhuman, her mouth stretching far too wide. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw them. Hundreds of burlap-headed figures in the darkness, watching silently as I ran. Finally, I tripped. When I hit the ground, she was standing over me, her face inches from mine, and she smiled. "Now," she said, "you're coming with us." The floor beneath me split open. Hands, cold, bony, and endless, reached out and dragged me down into the black. It was well past midnight. The house was silent, or at least I thought it was. Lying in bed, I heard a faint whisper coming from outside. At first, I blamed the wind. But no, this had tone, rhythm, like a voice. It was saying my name. Slowly, I got up and crept to the window. The street outside was empty, except for one dark patch across the road where the street light had burned out. That's where I saw it. A tall figure, motionless. I couldn't see its face, but I could feel its eyes locked on me. My pulse quickened. I grabbed my phone and opened the camera. But when I looked at the screen, nothing. The patch of darkness was empty. I took a deep breath and returned to bed, convincing myself it was my imagination. I was just starting to drift off when I heard it. Heavy footsteps, downstairs. Then it hit me. The front door was locked, and I was alone in the house. I snatched up my phone to call 911. My fingers hovered over the numbers. When the screen went black, a single message appeared. "We need to talk." No number, no contact name. I tried to reply, but the keyboard wouldn't work. Then every light in the house went out at once. The whisper returned, this time from inside the hallway. It was no longer just saying my name. It was speaking in sentences. "You found me. Now, it's your turn to hide." My heart slammed in my chest. I reached for the bedroom door to shut it, but the handle twisted in my hand. Slowly, deliberately, and from the darkness behind it came the sound of cold, ragged breathing. The bedroom door burst open before I could react. A freezing gust swept through the room, carrying the scent of wet earth and something metallic. In the doorway stood that same tall figure from the street. But now it was closer, so close I could almost make out a face. Only there was no face, just a black void absorbing the light around it. I stumbled backward until I hit the wall. My phone slipped from my hand and clattered to the floor. The figure stepped inside, slow and deliberate, its head tilting unnaturally far to one side, like it was studying me. "You shouldn't have looked for me," it whispered, though its head never moved. The voice didn't come from its body, it came from inside my own head. The air grew heavier. My ears began to ring, and the shadows in the corners of the room seemed to stretch toward me like living things. I grabbed the lamp from my nightstand and hurled it at the figure. It passed through it and smashed against the wall. The thing didn't even flinch. Suddenly, every object in my room began to shake, the drawers rattling, the window panes buzzing violently. My phone lit up on the floor, the same message flashing over and over. "Time to go." Then everything stopped. The figure was gone. The room was still. I thought it was over until I realized my bedroom window was wide open. I swear I'd locked it earlier. Outside, the street was pitch black, every street light dead. And then, far off in that darkness, I saw it again. Standing, waiting. That was the last night I ever slept in that house. I left the next morning with nothing but a backpack and the clothes I was wearing. I've moved 3 times since then, but sometimes late at night my phone still lights up. A single message. No number, no name. Your turn to hide.